Oh, okay.
Was
Okay.
mildly successful.
What a transaction would look like. Good afternoon. I'm Randy Mays Knapp.
Howdy. Howdy. My name is Sam Webb. I'm class of 2007. This sounds really hot, but maybe that has to be that way, the mic. So my name is Sam Webb, class of 2007. As Dr. Reister said, I'm a survivor from 425. One quick little anecdote about that is Reister and Joe Swinbank, who he's turning my mic off right now. They got me into the wind farm analysis because Joe, who is a very generous donor to this program and a client of ours at the law firm, he wanted to see if a small-scale wind farm was going to be a good investment, and so I started the project. It became very clear relatively quickly that it was not a good investment unless the government subsidized it to a very large extent. And then, because I came to that conclusion relatively early in the process, Dr. Reister and Mr. Swinbank and a gentleman named Dr. Lacewell thought that'd be really funny to convince me to go on a research project for about a month trying to determine the effect of limp wind on wind farms. Anybody know what limp wind is? Anybody want to take a guess what limp wind is? Limp wind doesn't exist. And Dr. Reister and Swinbank and Dr. Lacewell thought this would be a good use of my time. And now the joke's on them because I'm going to send them a bill for my hourly work I do for that.
Those from the country, we call it a snipe hunt.
A snipe hunt, that's exactly right, yeah. It was a snipe hunt. All right, so my name's Sam Webb, this is Keith Strahan. Okay, and we are lawyers in Houston, Texas. That's me and my family. I'm originally from Channelview, Texas, which is on the east side of Houston, near Baytown, and born and raised in that area. Came to A&M, first generation Aggie, first generation lawyer, and came to A&M with big dreams of getting involved in public policy and government and things like that. And folks like Dr. Reister and Dr. Outlaw and others encouraged me to go to law school. And so I went to Texas Tech University for law school and met my wife there, who's also an Aggie. She's class of 08. And kind of the rest is history. We lived in Washington, D.C. for about 5 years and really enjoyed our time up there. Came back to Houston 9 years ago and practiced law. And then started a law firm with Keith 3 years ago in Houston. And so we'll talk more about that in a moment in terms of our practice areas, but let Keith introduce himself.
So yeah, I'm Keith Strahan. I'm from Liberty, Texas. And I went to a small college in Austin. And so, now I was about to say, I've gotten hissed worse at family reunions than y'all just did to me. So I appreciate the respect, but we're still
They're trying to be respectful.
Right?
He went to Texas University.
There you go. That's better. I'm on the outside. I can't understand.
New Army's gone to hell.
There
That's all there is to it. All right.
So anyways, went there, graduated with a degree in government and philosophy, was going to do a PhD in philosophy and started that at the University of Manchester in England, and realized I didn't want to go to school for 7 more years and decided law school was the best alternative, and so ended up at law school at the University of Houston. And about 2 years out of law school, I realized, especially in the Houston area, there was a need for an attorney and counsel for small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs. And I realized that did not exist in the Houston area. And so I thought I saw a need there as a good entrepreneur myself, right? There was a need, and I feel like that I could fill. Before that, I was doing insurance defense and representing all these small businesses that one of their trucks would go off a road and hit something, and all of a sudden they weren't incorporated correctly, they didn't have insurance, they didn't have the right contracts, and now they come to me and say, hey, I'm going to lose everything because I didn't have all these things in place. And I thought, well, if this person would have just come to someone like me in the beginning, all this stuff could have been figured out, they could have kept their business, they could have kept going, and so that's why we did what we did, and so this has now become a passion of ours, representing small businesses, medium-sized businesses, SMB, I guess is the term now, so yeah.
Yeah. So Keith, do you think that there's more money in the practice of law or in the teaching of philosophy?
Yeah, in the practice of law.
Okay,
yeah.
great. So we don't have any philosophy majors in here, right? because you're all very practical Aggies who want to learn how to be good entrepreneurs with ag economics degrees, or animal science. I heard a lot of that too. That is Keith's wonderful wife, Jay, their daughter, Aria. Missing from that picture is Keith's new son, who's 2 months old.
William Charles, yeah.
Named after me, but it's kind of up for dispute. But anyway, so he's missing from the picture. So you can see both in my slide and in Keith's slide, we have this phrase, attorney, advisor, adjunct. So I'm going to start on the back side just to give you a little more intro on who we are and kind of what we do. And when we get to the attorney part, you'll figure out why I'm doing that. Keith and I both have a passion for teaching and for, it's really weird for me to say this, but for young people, because I think I'm still young.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
But I'm 39, so it's like I'm not, I mean, relative to Reister, I guess I am. But, you know, like, y'all, I'm not, right? So I can say that. He graded my stuff a long time ago. But we love young people. We love college students. So college was very impactful for both Keith and myself. If you notice, Keith is from Liberty. I'm from Channelview. We're basically Southeast Texas rednecks. I keep saying hillbilly, and Keith's like, there are no hills in Southeast Texas. We're rednecks. I'm like, okay, great. So we're from these parts of Texas, and universities were so impactful and transformative for our lives that we love to teach college students like yourself. So we're adjuncts. We teach classes at Houston Christian University, Trinity Law School, Texas A&M. So I teach the estate planning class online and hopefully in person soon here at A&M in the financial planning program. So I'd love for you to come be a part of that class. So that's one of the things we do is we love to teach, and that's driven by a passion that actually ties into being an advisor and an attorney. Being an advisor means both being an advisor to business owners who are needing to know what to do with their wealth, their business as they are succession planning, as well as advising them on good business practice. That ties into being an attorney, where we are basically teachers, counsels of our clients, telling them what they need to do from a legal standpoint. So we're all of those things, and we kind of bill ourselves as adjuncts and advisor and attorney. So we're glad to be here with you to talk about legal issues in particular for entrepreneurs. We use this trellis and vine example. Because we think it's a good analogy of how the law or the legal environment interplays with business activity or entrepreneurship. Is anybody familiar with trellis and the vine? There's a famous book in ministry circles, church circles, called Trellis and Vine. And this, we basically stole a concept from them. We think it's a very good and analogous concept. So if you think about it, who here, we have a landscape. Where's the landscaper? There you are, right. Remind me your name? Kylan, right? You're from the area, right? College Station, your dad works here. You told me that outside. Kylan is a landscape artist, architecture or landscaper. And so Kylan, tell me, why is it important to have a good trellis for a vine to grow on?
Because it has to have support. It's not strong enough on its own.
That's right. It has to have support. So you can see in the picture there, the very obvious kind of analogy we're drawing is that your business, whatever it might be, it could be any number of things, is not strong enough on its own to hold itself up. There are all kinds of legal structures, or the trellis, that is there for your business to grow on in a healthy and supported way. And so you have, if you have poor legal structures in place, you have a bad, let's say you're starting a business and you never incorporate it or put it into an LLC, you're just a sole proprietor. And let's say that you go around and you do a very high risky business of some sort. You don't have the proper risk management in place. And then you make lots of money doing it. But then you have this one incident where someone burns a big grassy area and your truck falls over like Reister, and all of a sudden you have all of this money that's at risk because your business was growing and growing and growing, but there was nothing to support it because you didn't have the legal structures in place for it. Okay, so if you have a poor trellis, you're going to have an unhealthy business. But on the alternative, if you have a strong trellis, a well put together trellis, then it allows for healthy growth in your business. What makes one of the key items that makes for a healthy trellis is different business structures and making sure you have the correct business structure for your business.
Yeah, so most successful businesses, not all successful businesses, have a great salesperson and operations person. I wonder if so I'm going to get into the nerdy stuff so you can kind of tell how we take on personality as law partners here.
True.
So there are business structures that you have. These are the ways of which you create a business, which is, under Texas law and U.S. law, a legal entity or a person. Okay? So you create this person in various ways, right? So you can have, normally we have this thing, if you're just solo, we call it a sole proprietor or a partnership. Now, a lot of these terms get used interchangeably, but think of it this way, right? You have two jurisdictions, grandly, two jurisdictions that regulate your business. You have the state of Texas, and what else? The federal government through the IRS, okay? So you set up an entity in a certain way that has certain ways that it is structured, ways that people vote. Do you have shareholders? Do you have stockholders? Do you have membership in this entity? And then you have what the state of Texas says, hey, you are now a corporation. You are now an LLC. And then you take that entity and you go to the federal government and you say, I want to be taxed as a corporation, a partnership, an S Corp. Okay? So when people say, oh, I want to have a C Corp, to me as I understand what they're saying, but to me as a lawyer, it doesn't tell me much because you can C Corp an LLC, right? You can tax an LLC as a corporation. But the whole point is you have two jurisdictions over your business, broadly speaking. The state of Texas is where you set up your entity. So when you set up an entity, anybody who has a business, what's the name of your business?
Smarter Cattle.
Is it incorporated?
Yeah, it's an LLC.
It's an LLC. And you filed the paperwork with where?
Governor, but I filed an S Corp.
With the state. See, right? You filed the paperwork, your LLC with whom?
The
State of Texas. And you filed your S Corp with?
I file all my stuff through Utah.
Oh, yeah, fair enough, yeah. But you do it to the state of Utah,
Yeah.
but you don't tell Utah, I mean, you probably do if they have income tax, but you tell the federal government, hey, I want to be taxed as an S Corp. So that's why we have these different structures and different things. So mainly what most people do nowadays, and the LLCs are only about 28, 30-ish years old. They're a way that, in the code, they combine the flexibility of a partnership with the limited liability that a corporation has, right? Anybody know what limited liability is? No one? Limited liability, I see a hand up.
You're not held personally liable for losses in the business.
Not held personally liable for losses in the business. Why is that?
Because it's a separate person.
Because it's a separate person. So when you have your truck hauling gravel, right? And you have that truck as part of your business, your business, it may be under your business, there's insurance under your business, and you're properly incorporated, either an LLC or corporation, and let's assume there's no, extenuating circumstances, it's just maybe just a crash on the road. There's no, drunk driving or anything that would make someone personally liable. In law, we see that the person who is liable for that is the business. The business is held liable, not the person who owns the business or the person driving the truck, right? So this is a way that we have created, hundreds of years now, we've created these corporations that create this liability between outside of you, or any risk or liabilities are on the company and not on you personally, absent fraud or negligence or gross negligence or something like that, right? And so now for most of you in here, one of the structures you're going to use, if you aren't already, you're going to use this LLC structure. Mainly because it's the most flexible and it has the most tax advantages for a single member or a partner. Okay? And so, as you grow and you start to say, well, actually, I want to do a few things. I'm now, a $20 million business. I'm going to start taking on investments. And the investors may come to you and say, well, actually, I want you to be a corporation. I still don't understand the rationale for Elon, but Elon moved from Delaware.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You do the nerdy stuff.
Yeah. So corporations now, They are better for investments. And a lot of times, and you say, Delaware corporations or wherever, right? Corporations are good for investments mainly because most people, when they invest in corporations, are really looking at it as for exit, right? So, most of the things you invest in, maybe in the stock market or corporations. But for an LLC, there is investment in there and there's partners and everything, but those are usually, I say, paint with a broad stroke, we're really small business. So these are the things you're going to really learn is how to operate an LLC that has members and managers.
So one of the other things I want to touch on here is that this is really where the trellis starts. So a lot of you have great ideas about potential businesses. Keith mentioned that every good business has at least one salesperson, and that could be, maybe that's not their title. That could be the CEO, that could be one of the partners in the partnership, whatever. But there's a salesperson, right? And then there's an ops guy. But you can do all of those things, and if you don't have a structure, a trellis, as your business grows, it'll start to wobble. And so you need to know up front, what are we going to do? Are we going to be a sole proprietor? Are we going to be a partnership? Within partnership, there's limited liability partnerships. How's that different than an LLC? You got to think through these things. This is what people pay us to do. This is one of our big practice areas at our law firm, is we are general counsel for outside businesses, ranging from small family-owned businesses all the way up to subsidiaries of multinational companies. And we have to do things like look at their business entity structures and make sure that they're in order so that their business grows and flourishes as the trellis and the vine. Anybody know who that guy is? Keith kind of gave it away. Who's that guy? Elon. Are you going to name your first son Elon? If he has anything to do with it, you will. He's going to take over the world. It's crazy. Anybody on Twitter or X? One? Or just one person? Two? Y'all don't want to admit it. That's what this is. Because we're going to come find you. Elon knows you're on X. Elon knows more about you than you want to know. Elon incorporated his business where? Where did he incorporate his business? Nope.
You talk about Tesla.
Tesla, sorry, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Like the rockets?
The rockets, that's SpaceX.
SpaceX is not public, but it is incorporated.
That's right. So you don't necessarily know the answer to that question, except that Elon got into a big spat with Delaware Chancery Court. So the state of Delaware a long time ago said, hey, we're going to be this hub of incorporation. Okay, we're going to have business courts. We're going to have special laws that basically incentivize all these people to come to our state, even if they are not actually located in Delaware, because what else is in Delaware? And so you go to Delaware and you incorporate your business there. That's been the case for a long time. That's changed over the years. Texas has made a run at being a much more favorable place to incorporate. And Elon got into a big hubbub because a Delaware court said that his buyout, his payment for whenever he bought X and he bought the shares, that there was, and he got a big bonus out of it, that this was a bad way of doing business. And the Delaware court said, how dare you? You can't possibly do that. That's not reasonable, so on and so forth. So does anyone know what Elon did? Elon said, well, forget you, Delaware. I'm going to move all of my corporations all my corporate entities to where? To Texas, right? And then they moved the businesses from California to Texas. And so Texas has become this hub of all of these businesses coming here because we're a much more business-friendly state and business-friendly environment. It matters how you incorporate your business, because you might be giving yourself over to courts who are going to, down the road, actually pin you against the wall and make you not as healthy as you would have been otherwise. Okay, so you need to think through these things.
Yeah, kind of one quick story is a way this happens of not incorporating. It's kind of a silly point, but it just shows what you're doing. So a landscaping company of mine, and so
not Kylan.
Not yet.
Kaylin.
Not yet, right?
Yeah, not yet. Hey, come talk to us later.
That's right. So he had a lot of contracts in this really nice neighborhood of Houston, and so he just would go weekly and mow these people's lawns. Well, he wouldn't. He had his team. I mean, he built this business. It was great. He had teams that would just go and do these lawns, getting paid, $50 every time they mowed a lawn, just making good, really, really, really good money. Well, one day, one of his guys was out with one of the lawnmowers, and he ran over a root of this, they claimed was a 300-year-old tree in the front in this lady's front yard. And so they made a claim on insurance, and insurance said, we're not going to cover it. We don't cover dead trees. I mean, this family, of course, this was a wealthy family. They got an arborist out to judge whether or not how old this tree was, the potential damages that it could have. So this family got a lawyer and sued my client. So client comes to me and says, hey, I just got sued. Like, how can you help me? And I said, well, where are your, tell me about your business. Where are you incorporated? He was like, I'm a sole proprietor. I'm not incorporated anywhere. Insurance didn't pick it up.
And so what happens, let me ask you, who's personally liable now? He is.
That's right. Yeah.
How'd the story end?
So the story ended, he ended up paying this family, the cost of the arborist, which was like $2,500. So anybody who wants to go be an arborist, be an
There's
expert
some real
arborist,
money in that.
There's some good money apparently.
Real money in that.
And then a replanting of the same tree plus $5,000 in insurance. So it cost about $12,000 all in all. But the point is that this could have been, he could have hit somebody, or a rock flown from a mower and hit a child or something. So what did we do the very next day, or while we were negotiating this? What did we do? What do you think we did? We incorporated them. We set them up in LLC. We put all the assets in that LLC so this never happens again. He doesn't come stressed out that he's built this great business, had a great family, had a great house, and potentially could lose it all over just some minor thing that could occur, where you think, hey, I'm just mowing people's lawns. What could possibly occur, right? So incorporation's huge, no matter how small you are.
So we've spent a lot of time on this particular slide because it is really the key to getting everything else right. And so we're going to go through fly through the rest of the slides pretty quickly. But business structure is a big deal. Has anybody taken ag law or business law at the business school? So some of you, okay. So some of these topics you probably have touched on in those classes, I would suspect. We're not going to be able to do a huge, big, deep dive now, hopscotch like Dr. Reister said, but we wanted to spend a lot of time on this because this really is, it doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but it's a huge deal for the trellis to be well maintained for the health of your business. Okay, so another area of law that you need to consider is regulatory compliance. No one likes the fact, well, let me put it this way. President Reagan said that one of the scariest phrases in all the world is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. Okay? Regulatory compliance is basically trying to figure out how that you can avoid the conversation with the government people. All right? You want to get things in order so that when the government shows up, you just say, here it is, we're in compliance, there's nothing to deal with here. So these are things like licenses and permits. We had to go through a licensing exam to become attorneys. You have to be a licensed attorney in the state of Texas and all other jurisdictions. And so we had to go through law school and sit for a bar exam and all that kind of stuff. The state of Texas has a very large number of licensed professions. Someone in here, I think Jade, is Jade around? Jade. Over there, Jade. Jade's family is involved in appraisal work. To be an appraiser, you have to be licensed. We represent another bucket area of our law firm is in the property tax world. And so we do a lot of litigation involving property tax issues in Brazos County and throughout the state of Texas. And you have to be a licensed property tax professional, not the attorney, but the consultants we work with. So there's a long list of these kind of things. That's just to get a license. Permitting for real estate. There's all kinds of issues there. Anybody who's involved in international trade, the regulatory issues, the compliance issues involved in international trade is outrageous. Okay? Employment laws. This long list of regulatory compliance that you have to ensure is in order so that you mitigate the risks for your business is very, very long. It's a long list. And so this is part of what we do as attorneys, is we help our clients make sure they're in compliance with the regulatory requirements for their particular industry. One real world example, anybody ever stayed in an Airbnb? Airbnb? Airbnb popped up maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. Maybe something like that. And it was a great idea. Somebody had an idea and said, hey, instead of instead of just going to hotels, we're going to compete with hotels and let people rent out their homes or rental properties or whatever as if they were hotels. So Airbnb gets going. Well, what do you think happened whenever Keith and his wife Jay went out of town for the weekend and they decided to let their home be rented on Airbnb? And then they did it again the next weekend. And then they decided to do it for a couple weeks. And then they realized, their city realized, wait a second, these people are taking a single family home and basically operating as if it were a hotel or as if it were a rental property. And that's not okay in this particular zone, or that's not okay in our particular city. And so you had all of these cities, Austin in particular comes to mind, where different ordinances came popping up all of a sudden and really cramped the style of folks who wanted to be Airbnb entrepreneurs, right? So you had to make sure that you're in compliance with that kind of issue, whether it's on the front end or as it changes throughout the course of running your business. This is a very big topic. Anybody here in the front rows, anybody wanting to do a business that involves intellectual property of any kind? You are, right? Keith, talk to us about intellectual property issues.
Sure. For a lot of our clients, the biggest asset that you have is your intellectual property. And so intellectual property is huge because one of the things we see most with our clients is that they haven't really protected their intellectual property from the very beginning, for conception or something like that, right? So you have, remember, everybody saw Social Network, right? Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg. Did everybody see that? Is that...
I mean,
is it an old movie now?
Is anybody on Facebook anymore? I don't know.
So, anyway, so in the movie, I guess I have to explain Social Network now. In the movie, Mark Zuckerberg, everybody knows what Facebook is, right? Or Meta now, of course. In the movie, he had all these friends kind of help him develop this website. Okay, and then the famous of the two of them are the Winklevoss twins, right? They helped him, or they gave him some money to help him develop this website. And so Mark gets big, Facebook gets huge and makes a ton of money, and the Winklevoss twins were like, hey, we helped you develop that. That intellectual property that you're using, we own a piece of that because I gave you money or I helped you code it at the very beginning. And so long story short, the Zuckerberg and Meta had to pay out the Winklevoss twins a ton of money because what could have been prevented at the very beginning with simple contracts, right? Some intellectual property agreements, some NDAs, cost them, instead of maybe $10,000 at the very beginning, now cost them millions of dollars, if not hundreds of. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, hundreds of millions.
Yeah. So even if you have an intellectual property, right, and you tell your roommate, it's just an idea right now, so my roommate codes, so I'm going to let them work on it. In law, in U.S. law, right, in U.S. intellectual property law, that who owns the code? If someone's coding, who owns the code? Anybody know?
Do we have any coders?
Any coders?
Anybody go to coding school during COVID? When you were in high school, probably?
It's the person who types in the code. If I take your picture and I take a photo of you, who owns that picture? Do you know? I do. I have the copyright of that photo. I took it. It's my creative process. Even though it's on your phone, I have the copyright. So you can't use it without my permission. Now, of course, we don't operate that way. But if I took a really nice photo and it got on the front of the New York Times and you sold it for $10 million, right? I had copyright to that. That's my intellectual property. So a lot of our clients don't protect from the very beginning. Any designs, logos, anybody doing something mechanical. These are things that you have to think about very early on, right? So it's very important to protect your intellectual property. And so if you want to talk more about that, we can talk about that. But I just highly encourage you, think that business that you're working on is going to take off. So protect that. I'm sure y'all talked about that, but definitely protect that intellectual property.
And one of the key ways that you can protect IP is through certain contracts.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to make sure that you have your contracts in order, particularly on the IP side, but also in all kinds of other ways. Your business, no matter what it is, will have to deal with contracts. Let me ask you this. Can anybody in the state of Texas write up a contract for you? No. The answer is no. It is actually the unauthorized practice of law for even your real estate agent, who regularly writes up contracts, to write up contracts for you. And so this is one of the key areas where lawyers have monopolized the service providing sector, but I think for good reason. And that is because contracts are so critical to the trellis of the vine of your company. You have to have good contracts in place. I'm dealing, and that's you see there on the slide deck, employment contracts, non-disclosure agreements, non-compete agreements, which are under, there's a lot of policy scuttlebutt right now going on because of issues around that. Vendor agreements, real estate leases, real estate purchase contracts. I mean, just the list goes on. I'm dealing with a lawsuit right now. We represent a large cruise company. There is only one cruise terminal in the state of Texas. Does anyone know where that's at? Not Houston.
Is it Galveston?
Galveston, that's right. So it's the only cruise terminal in the state of Texas. And that cruise terminal is owned by Port of Galveston. And Port of Galveston is not, it is a City of Galveston auxiliary, meaning it cannot levy property taxes. So it can't generate revenues of its own. Can't levy a sales tax, can't levy a property tax. So the only way that the Port of Galveston can generate revenues to develop the port for cruise terminal purposes or any other purpose is by entering into what's called a public-private partnership. These are going to be very important for some of your businesses. This is where you're basically contracting with the government. Okay, government contracts are complicated in and of themselves. There's a whole practice area in law of government contracts. But this particular instance is that a different government entity, Galveston County, is suing both our client and the Port of Galveston over one of their public-private partnership contracts. Okay? And it all boils down to the language in the contract. And it's an ongoing case, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of it right now. We can talk about it maybe offline somewhere. But the point is that when this contract was drafted, it was drafted in such a way that Galveston County thinks one thing, and the Port of Galveston and our client thinks another thing. Now, of course, we're right, and we'll be shown to be right in court. But this is how it's important for contracts to be drafted well, okay? Because otherwise, you're going to end up having to hire us to defend you in different disputes over contracts.
Yes, but I interpret that question a little differently. I think a couple of people did too. Like, your friends can draw a contract up for you. They can. It's not legally, but they can, and they do. And people come to us all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, my buddy and I want to start this business. Here's this thing we agreed to, and here's how we're splitting up the profits. And so, so I've spent all my time, money, and effort developing this, this website or this app or this business, and my friend hasn't done anything. And, give me the contract. Let's figure out what happens, and it's a mess. All of a sudden, everything you worked for goes down the drain, or half of it at least, because now you're going through a business divorce, which is more expensive in Texas than a regular divorce, by the way. And so now you've got whole other issues that are going to happen. If worse yet is people going on Google or ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, draw me up an LLC operating agreement. And then me and my buddy are going to sign this together.
Has anyone in here ever used ChatGPT?
Nobody wants to admit that one either.
I was just making sure we got all the hands raised so that we know later.
Got it on camera.
That's right. Okay, so then tied into all of that, you've got your business structure in place, you've got your contracts in place, you're in compliance with the regulatory situation. Now you need to start raising capital. And if I remember anything about my 425 experience, it was that we did pitches for money, right? We need investors in our business. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but we could. And every one of these issues is such a big deal, but you need to be aware of it. In particular, when you're raising capital, you need to make sure that you're in compliance with SEC regulations. Okay, and there's a laundry list of them. Regulation D is a big regulation that's involved with the raising of capital. And so you need to be aware of securities laws and work with an attorney who is proficient in securities laws, lest you get into a situation like I had one time where an apartment sponsor, someone raising capital to buy an apartment building as an investment, actually hired a limited partner. And so you hear the business structure start to come out. You have a general partner, you have a limited partner. He hires the limited partner to go, who is an investor in the deal, to go raise funds. Additional funds was going to pay him a finder's fee for the money he brought in. All of that got sideways with the SEC. Blew the whole thing up. Okay, it's not okay. You might also think about things like a Kickstarter campaign, and if any of you do crowdfunding type sources for raising capital, you need to be aware of the securities regulations involved there as well. Once you start working your business, you need to have insurance in place. Risk management. Risk management's more than insurance. It's not less than insurance. Okay, it's more than insurance. It's not less than. It's things like legal risk management. Keith provides our clients, and our other attorneys provide our clients legal audits. Why do you think we might perform a legal audit on a company?
So y'all can catch any issues before something major does happen, and there's money and a bunch of different things involved.
Yeah, so real world example. Client comes to me, says, hey, I got somebody who's going to buy my company. I said, okay, how much do they want? Well, $90 million. Okay, it's a lot of money. All right, let's work through this. Okay, so tell me about your ownership structure. Well, I'm going through a divorce right now. Oh, okay. All right. So in the middle, we look at their companies and we look at their corporate documents, and all of a sudden we realize that this guy claims to own 50% of the company, is going through a divorce. Judge gives his wife 40% of the company in the divorce, but there are no company documents that even show this one partner has any ownership in the company. And so big private equity firm comes to us. They're actually really cool about it, but I think they probably discounted this about $10, $15 million because we had to fix it. But point being is that from the very beginning, now this guy got lucky because his business partner was a good guy and said, hey, we're going to fix it. We're going to figure it out. But if that business partner wanted to, on paper, you don't own anything. At least I'm gonna sell it. If you want to come after me for some other issues, I'm gonna take the $90 million, and he could have, gone somewhere. But from the very beginning, they didn't have their lead. They built all this business together, and so we went through this divorce, and it was super stressful. And comes to find out, I come in as do the legal audit before we sell, and guys, this paperwork's a mess. We can't fix it now because you're going through a divorce. We fix it now, she may end up, with more than that. So it was a big deal. It was a huge deal. So you're absolutely right. We want to do that before somebody comes to you and says, hey, let's make money. Or before, you call me and says, hey, it's starting to go sour with my business partner. Well, let's figure this out.
Yeah, so some of the ways that you're going to manage that risk is through legal audits, like Keith was mentioning. You're also going to do things like insurance. Insurance is a very heavily regulated industry, and tons of contracts, tons of legal disputes over insurance issues, primarily over indemnification. So these are different ways you're going to manage that risk. You also see we have up there financial, reputational, cybersecurity. Financial risk management are things like hedging, right? Has anybody taken options and futures? Ag Eco students? I can't remember who taught me that class, but I thought it was awesome. It was my senior year. I got like an 82 in that class, and I went and begged for an A with a really big curve. And that sweet man gave me an A. I don't remember who he was, but he was an angel in heaven. And so you have financial risk management, reputational risk management. So that's like PR, right? There are legal disputes that arise because someone slandered somebody else, or someone made a libelous statement against somebody else, and so that actually damaged the reputation of the company and hurt the valuation. There's all these legal disputes. So you need to be able to manage the risk, the various risks of your company. Cybersecurity is a huge and growing area. Yeah. Your company, with the accounting management software, huge cybersecurity risks that you're going to need to get your hands around.
I had a conversation with a client this morning for a cybersecurity rider on the insurance. He was not going to get this contract unless he had a cybersecurity rider on this contract. The cybersecurity rider was worth more than the value of the contract. So we couldn't do the deal. Because the person, it was a government contract. Government came and said, hey, we're going to give you this personal data that you're going to have access to. You better have cybersecurity. And they came in, and the cybersecurity rider was in the insurance, a rider on insurance, which is additional to the general liability, right, was more than the value of the contract. And so,
Kills the deal.
Kills the deal.
Kills the whole deal. All right, we have about 5 minutes. We're going to fly through the rest real quick. Tax compliance, another big issue. Again, a lot of legal issues here. Federal tax issues. Be sure to pay your taxes. You don't want to get sideways with the IRS. The government always wins, okay? They may win in a way that costs you a lot of money. They may win in a way that isn't a big hassle. But at the end of the day, they're going to get their money. That's true at the federal level. It's true at the state level. So we do, another one of our practice areas at our firm is state and local tax. I do, Keith does, a lot of state and local tax issues in Texas in particular, dealing with property tax. So it's one of the things that businesses don't think much about until they get a big property tax bill from the tax assessor and collector's office, or they get a big valuation from the appraisal district. And so you need to keep these things in mind as you're thinking through your risk management and your compliance issues. Also, exit and succession planning. You're starting a business because you think it's going to make you money and be profitable. There will come a time when you need to get rid of that business, or your heirs, your estate may need to get rid of that business. And so you want to think through, not on the front end necessarily, though that's not a bad time to start thinking through, but as you work through your business, you're going to need to think about potential mergers and acquisitions, management buyouts, family succession. We got some family succession questions out there before the class.
Right over here.
Dealing with the trailer sales. So family succession's a big deal. Liquidation, just selling the business outright. Once you get to this point in your business life cycle, all of the issues we've just talked about are really going to make or break this, okay? So if all of the trellis that you had built throughout the life of your business isn't good, and the growth of your business isn't healthy, when you get here, it's going to hurt, okay? It's going to hurt. And I put estate planning on there because one of the things that I think I want to remind you is that estate planning is not just for old people. Okay? Estate planning is for anybody, generally, but if you're a business owner, you need to think about, how will my estate deal with an untimely death? Do we have a cross-sell agreement between business owners so that if I die, funded by life insurance, that life insurance is going to buy out my part so that they own the business? How is this going to work? That's all estate planning. You need to think through it, preferably on the front end, but certainly as you go through your business life. We have poured a lot out there for you, okay? And there's a lot of issues to think through. Keith and I make a good living trying to help and counsel and answer questions. I want to leave you with two things. Keith wants to leave you with two things as we end. And that is, our first thing is, what's the best legal advice we can give you? Well, we're not your lawyers, and so don't actually take any legal advice we've given you today until you engage us and pay us money. But the best legal advice that I can give you is, don't be an idiot. It's that simple. The law actually is not opposed to common sense. A lot of people think that the law is this convoluted thing, and at times it can be, especially tax law. It can be convoluted, it can be difficult, certainly true. But if you go about starting your business in a way where you are not an idiot, then that is a really good first step. First step, don't be an idiot. Anybody know who this guy is? Dwight Schrute from what TV show? The Office, one of the best shows of all time, can't be made today. You know why it can't be made today?
For all the other movies they just made up for.
That's right. The fact that you didn't know all other stuff, the fact you know that The Office, that's great. Can't be made today because different times. But The Office is awesome, and there's this great scene, which you would have seen if this had worked, where Michael Scott says to Dwight Schrute, "What's the best advice I ever gave you?" And Dwight Schrute very immediately says what? "Don't be an idiot." And Michael's like, okay. And then they cut to him here, and Dwight says, I think to myself, anytime I think, would an idiot do that thing? And if so, I don't do the thing. That simple. Okay, well, think to yourself, I'm starting a business. Would an idiot start the business without incorporating? No. Okay, or yes, sorry, yes. So are you an idiot? No. I got that one backwards. Who's an idiot now, Sam? Okay. Would an idiot start a company without investing, or without incorporating? Yes. Should you do that? No. Right? Would an idiot not pay their taxes timely? Yes. Should you do that? No. So the best legal advice we can give you is, don't be an idiot. Simple. Don't be an idiot. But we want to leave you with something a little more inspiring than don't be an idiot. So we're going to go with start with why. Has anybody heard about this? Read the book, Start with Why? There's a great book by a guy named Simon Sinek called Start with Why. And his whole point is kind of encapsulated here in the golden circle. He points out that every company knows what they do. We practice law. What do? We practice law. How do we do it? I don't know. It's a miracle. Why do we do it? Well, that's a different question, right? That's a different question. So you have a business. You know what you do in your business. Hopefully you know how you're going to do it. And the real question is, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? So Keith and I were very clear when we started our law firm 3 years ago. Keith had his own law firm at the time. He was a partner in another law firm. I was a general counsel for Betancourt Tax Advisors, a regional tax firm. And we started this law firm, and we said, why are we doing this? We knew what we were doing. We knew how we were going to do it. Why are we doing it? And fundamentally, the number one reason that Keith and I started a law firm is because we love our families. And we want to have a business that provides the flexibility in the finances so that we can have healthy families. And so that's why we do it. And so I'd encourage you to know the why. Don't be an idiot, and start with why.